Good afternoon. My name is Jon Sigler, and I'm a program manager on the Access team, and I'd like to welcome you to the Access 10 overview session. Today's agenda will be, I will come up and talk about the vision and sort of the overview of how we got from V9 to V10, and then drill down into some of the core enhancements that we've made to the product. Then we're going to bring up the experts in each of the areas of Access. We'll have Bill Ramos come up and talk about the Access projects and integration with SQL Server, pivoting in Access, and some XML work. Dave Gaynor will come up and present that. Then we'll hand it off to Clint Covington, who will continue on with XML and the data access page designer. At the very end, during the session, if you have questions, we have PMs here that can answer those, so you can go ahead and feel free to ask, ask those questions on the chat. The first thing I wanted to do was talk a little bit about how we got from Access 9 to Access 10. When we left Access 9, we had the feeling that we did a tremendous job in that product, but we took on a lot of work. We did a tremendous amount of architectural work, integration work from other teams such as DaVinci. And so we wanted to make sure that in Access 10 that we sort of wrapped up everything that we did in 9. And that led us to this vision of having great stability, great performance for Office users building database applications. We basically break down the product into 4 areas. The core area, which basically overlaps with everything else. It's a catch-all. It's where we do things like performance and stability. Client server, that's basically our integration with Microsoft SQL Server. Data access pages, which is a new designer that we added in the last release. And then a new effort for this release is pretty much XML across the product. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time giving you an overview for each of these areas. And again, the Access core part of Access is a catch-all, and it's things where people focus on performance and stability, and not just in Access forms and reports, but across the product. So when we focused on core this time, we wanted to, again, add increased speed and reliability, as well as add some components that would help developers build applications. So, for instance, making pivots a core part of Access and exposing that as a different view was a major effort for us across the product and owned by our core group. Improving Access fundamentals. This is things like performance and stability and crash recovery, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when we drill down into the core area. We also made a conscious decision to focus on some of the developer requests that we've had over the last 18 to 24 months. And these developer requests are things like new events and properties that will help those developers build better applications. And we also wanted to strengthen our international story and make sure that we were spending the appropriate amount of time to make sure that Access was a great citizen worldwide. Access Client Server, this area basically is our relationship with SQL Server and how Access actually interacts with SQL Server. Our long-term goal for this area is that building applications with SQL Server is as easy as Access and Jet, Jet being our native engine. So as we move forward, we make decisions that will help us first and foremost in those areas. We also get to leverage all of the great new features that are coming out from SQL Server 2000. And we'll drill down into this area and look at some of those features as we move forward. We also look at this area as a landing pad for data, which was something that we focused on for Jet, and we'll do the same thing with SQL Server. So when customers want to import and export different data types, they can do that within SQL Server. They can also link to different data types using OLADB. XML and Access 10. When we started the Access 10 project, we knew we had to do something with XML, and of course we thought import and export was something that we had to do and do well. Well, we actually did do a great job with import and export, but we've leveraged the XML technology to do some wonderful other things that help you extend the Access product, and we're going to drill down on that today to see how we can use XML to transform different objects outside of Access. The Data Access Page Designer is a designer that we introduced in the last version of Access, and it basically allows the creation of data-bound HTML pages via the same type of actions you would take in forms and reports and access. So, for instance, dragging and dropping to create a data-bound control is something that we introduced in the last version. That was, again, a tremendous effort for us to actually create a new designer in one release. So we went back and we actually made the data page designer a world-class designer. And I believe that it's not something that just Access developers and users will use, that actually web developers will now use Access because this designer has become such a great designer. Now I want to spend just a couple of minutes drilling down on the core area. There's really no demo here, but I did want to spend some time sort of explaining what we did across the product. As I said earlier, improved performance and stability. As you've probably heard in previous sessions, there's a crash recovery or an Office Watson cross-team effort going on, and we certainly leverage that in Access. So we use Office Watson, which means when Access crashes, we will allow our customers to send that information so that we can then build better products in the future and understand why we're crashing. We also have enhanced our compact and repair technology so that when the application does come back up, that it's in a stable state. We've also done numerous usability improvements. And this is across the product again, where we want to have tooltips and reports, or we want to make sure that that we are adding expression builders to VBE. And again, this is core. It spans across all of the areas of Access. So the fundamentals that you'll see are not just in forms and reports, but again in VBE or in our file formats. In Access 10, we do not require a file format change, and what that means is a user can actually develop an Access 10 database, open that up in 9 without converting, and go ahead and develop, and vice versa. So when you take that 9 database, you can open up back in 10 without conversion. We also have an Access 2000, or excuse me, Access V10 file format, and that file format is a change. You do convert to that file format, and we need to do that for several reasons. One of which is that in order to create an MDE or an ADE in Access 10, you will need to use that new file format. We also created that file format because we wanted to make the round-tripping or file format change experience even better, and we were able to add things to that file format that will help us as we move forward in that area. And the last area there was that we were able to do some even more performance gains in that file format for large projects. The next area for core is the rich environment for developers. And here, as I said earlier, we sort of consciously made an effort to make sure that we were offering a tool that developers can use. And the way that we made decisions in this area is we went out and we talked to our insiders, our gurus, our developer community, and asked them what they would like to see and make their life easier. So we've added new events and new form and report properties that actually make developing applications much easier for those developers. We've made additions to the Access object model. One of the things that we've added that developers have been asking for quite some time is the Access printer object. That basically allows those developers to target reports at independent or individual printers and not be dependent on the setting of Windows. And again, we have many other things that we've done in this area, as you can see by the slide, and you're welcome to come back and look at these. I'm not going to go individually here, but again, we wanted to make sure that the developer community felt like they were getting the tools they needed to build great database applications. The last area in core was strengthening our international story, and we did this in several ways. I think the first thing that we did is we went out and we talked to the PMs worldwide and asked them what their customers needed. And things like better complex table drawing in forms and reports was a feature that the East Asian customers asked for, but we leveraged worldwide. But the customers in that area are really going to benefit from that. The way that those customers build reports, this feature just vastly improves their experience in building reports. We also want to make sure that we are behaving very well in our worldwide scenarios. So we now have a single worldwide executable to include BiDi. We have done a lot of work in making sure that the Unicode efforts across the board are that we're spending enough time there, and that's both inside of Access and the components that Access picks up. So we do spend a lot of time thinking about how we can make Access a much better international citizen. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is the Access projects in SQL Server 2000, and I'm going to call up Bill Ramos, who's going to present on this area. And again, if you have any questions on the slides that we presented so far, or the things that you're seeing that are upcoming, please feel free to enter them in chat at this time.